My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Knighted Ones podcast. It's episode number 53. And what does that mean? That means we've completed one whole season, our first season. You've been there with us the whole way. And we're now on to season 2. So this is actually episode 1 of season 2. And to help us celebrate, we have a special guest this week. On top of that, it's game week, so I hope y'all are as excited as I am. I'll be there. A lot of the crew will be there, and we'll be doing a little bit of tailgating and a whole lot of winning. So as a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst and hoops player, an infamous rapper, our resident influencer and IG star shooting the breeze talking UCF sports. And remember to like and follow us on YouTube and check us out on the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle, the Big 12 Huddle, 4th in Florida, and a new stream coming your way soon. So without further ado, this week we're going to talk a little bit about the newly minted depth chart that we had hinted at last week. So we'll go over position by position. What are the surprises? Do we feel like it is what we thought it was going to be? Who's missing? So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about John Walker and his status as far as now we have a little bit more information on that this week. We'll preview our game against New Hampshire, which, by the way, is sold out. That newly announced this week. We'll talk about keys to the cane. We'll do some predictions for the rest of the season. We'll talk a little bit of listener love to shout out to those new listeners this week. And we'll have Alan and Josh battle it out in their Oxymoronic stats versus funny facts of the week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on the crew. As always, first, Nobra, the producer. Nobra.
Hey now.
Wow, that was delayed. What was that?
I was waiting for you to bring me in.
Oh, man. All right, Nobra. Give us the patented hair flip. We missed that this week. We attempted to try that, and it just didn't work. Our hair was just not long enough. So welcome back. Glad you're back so that I don't have to produce. So excited to have you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, let's go ahead and bring to the studio Trey Neal. What's up, Trey?
What's up? Game week, best week of the season started back up. So I'm excited, man. How you guys?
Yeah,
doing?
man. I imagine it brings back some memories for you, right?
A little bit.
A little bit. Are you crying? There's a tear going
And
down.
I'm what 6-7 years removed, so I'm starting to lose my touch with it a little bit. So,
we got to get you on the sideline. Then we got to get those passes.
Gotta get those sideline passes.
Shout out UCF. Next, we've got Ben Stout back to the silver screen. What's up, Ben?
What's up? What's up? Glad to be back. Glad that it's game week finally. Ready to go, man.
Yeah, Lake Mary's biggest fan right here. Ben kept us up to date as Lake Mary went on to their not only U.S. win but World Series international World Series win. So thank you, Ben, for keeping us up to date.
Yeah, no doubt. Shout out to those boys, man. Congratulations. That's pretty awesome.
All right, next to the stage we've got Alan Levin. What's up, Alan?
Hey, game week. Let's go.
Best
week of the year.
That's an extra aggressive hair flip. Come on, man. Let's see it. You got to take the hat off at least. I mean, come on.
I don't have enough for the hair flip anymore.
Oh, man. Well, you better keep some more because we keep getting listeners and subscribers. So it's coming. That day is coming. Next, I'm going to go ahead and bring last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar. Full crew this week.
Yeah, this is what happens. Everyone gets back into the season and ready for football, and everyone just magically shows up on the podcast.
Full house this week, baby.
Automatically.
Plus one too, and I'll get back to some bars in a bit. My voice is getting a little bit better.
All right. So as you mentioned, drum roll, please. Welcome back to the stage, the OG of UCF podcasting, a friend of mine, and a heck of a guy, Andrew Phegley. Welcome back, Andrew.
Hey, how y'all doing? Good to see you.
Super excited. We had Andrew on our very first show. He's coming back to help us kick off season 2. So super excited to have you back and back behind the mic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, man. So we got lots to talk about this week. I guess let's go ahead and start with a little bit of text talk. We got to bring that back this week since we actually had a game. We had FSU get embarrassed in Ireland, at a last-minute field goal. Let's bring up our text talks. So, Ben Stout, what did you have for your text talk this week?
I spent most of the weekend on a baseball field, so I honestly didn't pay much attention to the text talk this week. So I'm the worst one to go to first.
That's
so
why
I called you. Text talk. That's
why I called you out. All right, Josh, save it, please.
Sure, I got 2. The first one was that the Fighting O'Learys are holding their own. This is earlier in the game where Georgia Tech, you could tell that there's some good things going on. And then Alan, probably one of Alan's TED talks, I might be stealing it. But at some point, Alan foolishly made a wager, legally, of course, on this. And I said, well, that's money is gone. And that was, that was during halftime. Like, I didn't even think they had the shot of getting covering from that point, and I was definitely right. So
Alan, how do you feel about that? How do you defend that? I mean, what were you thinking, bro?
Look, I was thinking that Florida State was going to come into the season mad and, after last year's debacle and, put up or shut up, and didn't work out too well for me. What can I say?
They're still ranked number 16 this week, though, somehow.
I mean, I should have known. Georgia Tech, they always have those weird, they're one of those teams that you just don't like playing. So, I probably should have gone the other way there. But
listen, FSU got O'Leary balled. For real. There was only 14 possessions in that game, so 7 apiece. Defense, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that that linebacker, but he looked swole. So, and he was all over the field. So it was what impressed me was every single linebacker, defensive lineman, etc. Knew their assignment, filled their gap. Unlike UCF football last year, they weren't confused. They knew how to scrape. The safeties were coming down when they needed to. They had blitzes that were fast, coming off the edges. And DJU just looked like DJ Pooh. So just going to put that out there.
He was waiting to bring that one out.
No, I wasn't actually. That was on the spot. I was thinking about that as I was saying it. But Trey Neal, what about you? What did you have for your text talk this week?
So mine is going to be simple. It was Alan saying college football is back. This is the best time of the year to me when football is right around the corner. It was something just watching game day on Saturday. Like, I was like, wow, like this
Hold
is
on. You watched all of that dribble? It was the SEC and ACC kiss butt show the whole time. I don't think I can watch it anymore, to be honest. I'm going to be watching the Fox noon at kickoff thing, I think.
I was just glad that we got some live football talk. Enough of the, how everybody's looking in preseason, enough of that. Like, that's what we're doing going forward. All the preseason, I think we're going to do good. Well, we're going to put our money where our mouth is now. So I think that's the best part about it to me. So I was excited. That was my text talk. College football is back.
Well, I'd invite Andrew, but he isn't part of the text thread yet. I think I'm going to add him now because he's probably more animated than all of us put together during game day. So just for the pure fun of it, I think I'm going to throw him on there.
I don't know how I feel about that.
You'll make it on the show weekly.
There you go. Yeah, you can just blast my crazy text. It's over. It's over the season.
5 minutes into the game.
First 15 minutes.
You might talk some sense into Allen though with these wagers that he's putting out on halftime.
No, it wasn't. It was before the game. I didn't bet it at halftime.
Oh, okay, all right. I thought you bet it at halftime. I was going to say,
like,
I think you just told us at halftime.
I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised at that to double down. I usually am one of those people that was like, I'm already this in deep, so I might as well. But I didn't.
Go all the way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's. Speaking about getting in deep, pause. Let's go ahead and talk about that depth chart that was recently released. And Alan, why don't you tell us a little bit about the offense? Were there any surprises there for you? What were your initial thoughts on the offensive two deep?
Yeah, I think the offense was actually the least surprising. There really wasn't any big surprises in my mind. I know it's a two deep, but I think we've seen in past depth charts release where they have gone past the two deep. So it was a little surprising maybe to not see who the QB3 is, even if it was a or situation. So I was interested to see who actually won that role behind Jakuri. Was it Rizek or who was it that was going to actually, win that role? But I guess they kind of actually stuck with the two deep. Running backs, no surprise, although I found it funny that they literally put all four, or I should say after RJ, they put three running backs as the, I guess, second string running back. So
the or.
What was that?
The or.
Yeah, it was interesting that, maybe I thought it was a little interesting. I don't know if this was just purely for week one or purely to keep people happy, but I would have thought that, with all the hype that Penny Boone had, you would have thought that maybe he separated himself as the clear cut running back too, and not an or situation. I'm sure that will solve itself as the season goes on. And maybe it was just kind of a, week one, we're playing an FCS school, whatever, kind of put it out there, but thought that was interesting. Then at wide receiver, there wasn't any surprises as far as really what was put out there. We all heard Whitmore was going to be that wide receiver 3. And we've been hearing
that. We had that argument last week, right? On who we thought it was going to be. Was it going to be Whittemore or was it going to be Jones, right? And it looks like it's going to be Whittemore.
Yeah, and it wasn't a surprise, just everything that's been put out there in the media, the dungeon, all different places. So it wasn't necessarily a shock, but it was a little actually, maybe I should use the word more concerning that none of the transfers separated themselves. I mean, this is a guy that Whittemore that caught 3 passes last year, and he won the role over 2 transfers, one that caught, 2 touchdowns in one of the scrimmages, one that had a huge role at his school last year. I'll keep harping on it. I'll talk about it today. I don't think the wide receiver depth is there. The fact that he's, won that position, but once again, not really surprised based on everything we're hearing. I thought no surprises at tight end, and then O-line shook out. I thought exactly what we all projected. I mean, it was really cool to see Paul Rubelt get that right tackle position. So for me, when we're talking about offense, I don't really think there was any surprises other than if you consider Whittemore or maybe the fact that, Penny Boone didn't get that clear cut, RB2 role.
Well, I think for me, when it comes to Penny Boone, you heard a lot about him working his way back into it. There was even him saying that, right? There wasn't any of this. It's just going to be handed to him. I think with Johnny Richardson, he had plenty of opportunities to leave as well and didn't. He decided to stick around. I think there's a little bit of rewarding that. And remember, when you're talking about Whittemore, this is the first game. So right. There's going to be some, they're not going to show all their cards. And on top of that, it's a little bit of a reward for seniors, just kind of like senior night, making sure your guys are getting snaps. So I don't know. I wouldn't read too much into this, but from what Gus said, and, we did hear during camp that Whittemore was making some pretty stellar plays, but so was Jacoby Jones. And so were a lot of the other guys that were there. Little surprised that Bradell Richardson wasn't at least on the 2 deep because he was making a whole lot of noise during the offseason as well. But that was really the only big surprise there. I don't know why they wouldn't have listed a QB3 unless there was just someone who didn't stand out above the rest, or maybe they were trying to, keep our freshmen, reclassified freshmen happy. I don't know why they would do that, but glad that KJ's out there at QB1, and I don't think there's any controversy for once in I don't know how long in UCF land about that. And obviously having Jakuri there that was solid as well. So Hitler, that kind of made me that piqued my ears a little bit because I know he was also injured in camp. He was injured last year, and obviously we played round robin with the centers last year, so it sounds like he solidified himself there and was very happy for our resident German, who was much maligned when he first was recruited at right tackle. So it'll be interesting to see how he does this year. Andrew, I don't know if you remember those conversations we were having way back when Heupel was recruiting him, and we're talking about Paul Rubel.
Yeah.
What do you think about him making it all the way to right tackle as a starting right tackle now?
I think it's great. I mean, because he's been there the whole time, and he's worked his way there. Obviously, I think it's going to be weird a little bit just because he's such a big dude. Like, he's so tall that it's going to look a little bit weird. I mean, he was in a couple of times in and out, but I just can't kind of wait to see it. It's a big dude to push around right there. So hopefully he does a good job there. Well, I mean, other things though, as far as if I can say a couple of things about the depth chart real quick.
Yeah.
The running back thing, I put in our little private chat here, like, there's a lot of ore on that running back. I mean, look at that lineup of running backs. First of all, those are some big dudes right there. So if we can't run the ball with that, I mean, excluding Johnny Richardson, as far as big dudes, I mean, that's a lot of beef right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of muscle. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm excited about that. I mean, you have to be able to run the ball, obviously. I've always thought that was a big thing. There are a lot of familiar names here. Some of them, though, that I've never even heard of. I don't pay nearly as attention as I used to. So it's going to be interesting. And, watching it on TV or at the stadium or whatever and trying to figure out who's who with all the transfers and stuff, it's still kind of a new thing. There's a lot of names on the defensive side of the ball that I'm not familiar with, and a couple that are kind of missing. So I'm excited about it, though. It's a good thing to have that depth chart.
Yeah, I think when we get into the defense, I think I think all of us feel that we have pretty solid defense this year, especially when it comes to the linebacking core, which we've been talking about since I think after Scott Frost left. We always ask the question, what position group do we have the most questions at? And it was the linebacking core for a very, very, very long time. Trey, anything jump out to you on offensively on the depth chart? Any surprises? Anything jump out to you? Anybody you want to tackle?
I mean, to me, to be honest, looking at the entire depth chart, I saw a lot of fifth-year senior, redshirt senior, redshirt junior. So to me, I don't think there should be – I have a lot of expectations. When you have a senior-laden type of group, when you have a older group, we shouldn't see a lot of mental errors. These guys have played a lot of football. They've seen a lot of football. These are older guys. So these small things that, freshman mistakes that'll happen, the young guy mistakes that'll happen, we shouldn't see that. It should be very clean football. So that's my expectation. I don't think we can use the excuses again. Oh, it's just they're just getting jailed. That's not an excuse anymore. These guys are vets. You can fix it. A lot of these guys are fifth years. I know what the fifth year schedule is. You take about 2 or 3 classes and you're studying your butt off around. It's football. You're taking 2 or 3 classes to keep you eligible. I'll say that. And you're just pouring everything into football. And this is a lot of these guys' last chance. So, so to me, that's not a good enough excuse for me this year. I think these guys are vets. They need to perform like it. KJ Jefferson's been in a million games. He played a lot in the SEC. So it's not going to be too much. Gus's offense isn't that complex to where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. So that's my expectations.
Well, going back to what Andrew said about the line and the beef, right? So where's the beef? The beef is definitely on the line. When I'm looking through these linemen, right? So left tackle, Murray Kite, 6'7", 318 pounds. Adrian Medley, 6'5", 305. Caden Kittler is redshirt sophomore, so he's still going to put on weight, but he's 6'3", 295. Marcellus Marshall, 6'5", 310. And then obviously Paul Rubelt, 6'11", and a very lean 330.
330.
Yeah.
That's a big dude. I mean, he's huge anyway because he's so tall, but and he's a lean 330. You look at him, if you see him and you don't think that's 330, but he's such a tall dude.
He's 2 inches shorter than I am, but he's got 100 pounds, about 100 pounds on me. Basically.
All right, so hold on. Was that a humble brag right there?
No, it's not a humble brag. What I'm saying is he's 100
he's
pounds.
2 inches shorter than me.
He's my height. He's essentially my height, but 100 pounds heavier of muscle. Like that's a big dude.
That's a big.
I mean, I checked in at UCF day one as a freshman. I was 7'1", 185. This guy's 330. This guy's 330.
Dude, anybody got you in the low post, you were falling over like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
The wind would blow him over.
I was wiry strong, Roger. You give me a little bit of respect there. But no, I just looking at the offensive depth chart, I'll just kind of echo a few things that people were saying. I mean, I think Trent Winnemore, one of the things that Malzahn said in his press conference today was that he's always been a guy since he's been at UCF to do the little things really well. He's a good blocker, probably known as one of our best blocking wide receivers last year. He only caught 3 passes, but he was just an excellent blocker, and that's the reason why he got a lot of playing time. He just didn't really notice the playing time because we're not throwing him the ball, right? Yep. And I think that when you do when you're known for doing all those little things as a wide receiver, and then you get into camp, you've got the experience. He's a redshirt senior, and you've got that experience. You're basically, and then all of a sudden you make a couple plays with your hands, you make a couple of good catches. All of a sudden the coaches are going to notice that even more. You're already doing all the little things right. And then all of a sudden he makes these plays, which we heard, obviously, Jacoby Jones making a lot of great plays as well. But I think that those little details is what maybe is setting him apart, at least right now, and got him the starting nod, at least for game one. And so the last thing I'll just kind of echo is I was a little surprised, even though you heard you heard Cam Kenny being mentioned a couple of times over the last week or so. But I did think that the true freshman Flynn would kind of challenge for that number 2, or be in the 2 deep as that backup center role. Him being so highly rated out of high school as being the number 2 center in the country. So future's bright there. I'm glad we've got some good quality depth. And then lastly, it's to piggyback off of Trey's point, I mean, that's all that Malzahn seems to be talking about is the amount of collective experience that this team has in its players, especially on offense. But we're going to get to defense as well. We're going to kind of see the same thing, but but especially on offense. And so he always keeps talking about that, and then he always hedges his bets by saying, but the chemistry has got to be there. How are they going to play together, right? And so I think he's probably rightfully so, probably putting even more pressure on himself in this season, and in Gus's kind of put up or shut up year, I think. And so that'll be interesting to see how all this experience comes together, because they have a ton of game experience. But they don't have that together. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, definitely think the senior experience, we were talking about how different they said that camp was, for this team, and how much more they could get installed and how much faster they were able to move, with this team. There's a few surprises on defense that I'm excited to talk about. Alan, why don't you take us through the defensive depth chart, please?
Yeah, I thought the bigger surprises for me were on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Malachi Lawrence got one of those edge rusher spots. Jala Kelly, I think there obviously was a lot of buzz coming, when he transferred to take that other spot. But lately there had been a lot for Call and Nixon to potentially take that spot. So it was interesting to see that Kelly got it. I guess good to see. I know he was extremely hyped out of high school, so not a major surprise, but it was good to see Call, one of Malzahn's earliest recruits. I think his second ever recruiting class here, did get that second spot there. So that was good to see. And Nixon also made the 2 deep as well. Obviously, defensive tackle, we know John Walker got injured. And on top of that, we had another injury at defensive tackle. So, who is going to fill in there? Obviously, we know that Barber was going to be one of the starters. And of course, Lee Hunter. But it was interesting that actually Dotson, when he was originally brought in as transfer, was originally slated as a defensive end. So it looks like they slid him over to defensive tackle, which to me kind of talks about the lack of depth. I know we talked about defensive line being one of our stronger units, which I still think it is, but the fact that they had to kind of move Dotson over, maybe not use someone like LeBlanc or Andrew Rumpf at defensive tackle, and slide in, a former FCS defensive end at defensive tackle, kind of spoke volumes to me. And then very interesting, they brought this very late walk-on they had, I think it was a couple months ago, Tyreek Robinson, huge guy, well over 300 pounds. Looks like he got the nod there, I guess, as the at defensive tackle behind Dotson. So that was interesting to see that, it wasn't someone like Rumpf or Derek LeBlanc getting that spot, but a walk-on from actually a high school walk-on, someone that was considered a 3-star, but then, didn't get really heavily recruited in the first signing day and ended up signing on as a walk-on in the not in the early signing day, in the fall signing day. So that was interesting to see that. I thought that was a bit of a surprise. I guess that shows he was really under recruited, and, maybe someone that can make an immediate impact. Then at linebacker, for me, nothing really there. I think we all knew Pace was going to get that weak side linebacker spot, and Ethan Barr was going to get the middle linebacker. So to me, not really big surprise. And then, the backups there, Josiah Pierre, not a big surprise. We knew Andrew Harris was going to get a chance this year, and he got one of the other linebacker spots. So didn't think there was any major surprises there. And then obviously Ziri Alexander. So I thought that shook out exactly how it was supposed to. Pretty much all of the transfers we brought in the offseason either got a starting role or one of the backup roles. And then, some of the younger guys like Andrew Harris look like they're finally cracking the 2 deep, which is good to see. Then for me, at secondary, I thought that's where I thought the biggest surprises were. There had been, we knew some of the guys that were going to be there. We knew Brandon Adams was going to lock up one of those cornerback spots, but Mac McWilliams, there had been some recent buzz around him that he was kind of competing for that spot opposite of Adams. Wasn't 100% sure if he was going to ultimately get that spot, but he did. I thought that was, somewhat of a surprise considering how much Antoine Jackson has been hyped from after transferring over from East Carolina. Everyone said he's one of the fastest players on the team. Has made some amazing plays in practice and in the scrimmages. So for him to get that kind of backup role, I was a little bit surprised there. Then, at the nickel, no surprise, Braden Marshall, he had that role last year, so not a huge surprise. And then really the only true freshman, which I thought this was very disappointing, was Chasen Johnson. We heard, really since day one that he got to UCF that he was going to make an immediate impact, and he's already on the 2 deep. But I thought that was really disappointing for being that this was the highest ever recruiting class in UCF history to only have one starting freshman crack the 2 deep, especially when you compare the last 2 seasons. We've always had 2 or 3. Last year, Walker was on there, Marshall was on there, a couple other guys were on there. This year, I thought at least one of the wide receivers, like you mentioned, Roger. I thought Walt Claire Flynn Jr., I think someone else mentioned that. I thought at least maybe 3, maybe 4 guys. So I thought that was really disappointing. I know we are a senior laden team, like you said, Trey, but I thought a couple more guys would at least be in some sort of backup role. And then at safety, we knew Tennyson was going to be one of those guys. We knew Bullard was going to be one of those guys. And then William Wells, they all kind of made the 2 deep. And then the other safety is Sheldon Arnold, which don't think it's a big surprise. Damari Henderson is injured right now. So I think this is very subject to change when he comes back, whether that's Arnold that gets kind of demoted or that's, Tennyson or whomever gets demoted. The bigger surprise for me, I thought Byron Threats was going to be, I thought he would get that nod. Once I knew that Henderson was not going to be ready for the beginning of the season, I really thought he was going to be that guy. He did pretty well at Cincinnati. He was the first transfer of the class, got a lot of hype from Malzahn and the defensive coaching staff. So I was a little surprised to see Arnold, who was actually one of the last transfers who had the least amount of time on campus and learning the playbook, ultimately lock up that role. So defense had a few surprises.
One thing I do want to throw in there that might be affecting that Byron Threats thing. So a lot of people are reading into that, but he just had a baby. Literally, I think it was like a week and a half ago, and this is New Hampshire. So I'm guessing that probably had something to do with it. He wasn't there for practice. I can tell you that much for a lot of it because of the baby. So, sorry. Oh, apparently that was Josh's fun.
I just made
He's
that
going to have to come up with another one.
It's not my fun fact. Thank you. I have a pretty good one of those.
I just made that up.
Well, that was a fun fact. That was a fun fact.
Byron Threats, but it's actually Brian Threats.
Yeah, it's a fun fact for him and his family, and I hope they're doing well. And that makes 100% sense why he would not be there if he just had a kid.
But he's there.
Yeah.
Is he not playing? Or I didn't say he.
No, he's
on
there.
The 2 deep.
He missed some practice. So I think he also missed. If I'm not mistaken, he missed the third scrimmage as well because he was going out and when they were doing media interviews, he was talking about him expecting his baby anytime soon. That they had a jet to take him back up there. So. That's, I think maybe has more to do with it than anything else.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. And one thing I want to stress is this is week 1 as well. So
exactly.
A lot of these things, this is going to change a little bit next week.
And it's New Hampshire. Not only is it week 1, but it's New Hampshire.
There's going to be some changes here though. I'm sure, there's always some changes after week 1. You never know what's going to happen as far as performance goes by any of these guys. So there's always room for change. There's going to be some names, people are going to make some plays, some other people not going to make some plays. Some things are going to change on this. There's probably going to be some names added. There's probably going to be some names, taken away. So that's how I always feel about the depth chart.
Yeah, it's looking at it from a defensive standpoint, one thing we didn't we'll kind of talk about a little bit is give an update on the defensive tackle spot. Obviously, there's a big person that's missing on that roster. We kind of talked about it last week. I do also find it interesting that LeBlanc did not get the call up to fill that defensive tackle spot. That really surprises me. So I don't know, maybe there's more injuries in that room that we know, or he's just not performing the way that is expected, but he's nowhere to be seen on this depth chart. So, who knows, but it'll be interesting to see on that second week. Nigel Kelly, that I think is a name that Knight fans need to know. Remember, he was the guy who played really highly. He was the number 1 defensive end when he went to Miami, his first recruiting year. He sat out last year because he was injured. So this guy was a freshman, was the number 1 defensive end in the country, sat last year, is coming back this year and has a starting role. So Caven Call and Jamal Johnson were actually, a lot was said about them, both when they were being recruited and they were doing pretty well in camp. So having Kelly as the number 1 on that depth chart says a lot about not only what he could be, but where he is today. And he's got a lot to prove, especially as he goes to the NFL. So that's a huge, huge, huge talent that a lot of people, I think, are sleeping on and may not know about. So that's exciting. Ziri Alexander also has been making a lot of noise in camp, as has been Andrew Harris, which is exciting there as well. Both of those sophomores. So what's interesting for me is, yes, we do have a lot of seniors right now, but it looks like we have some depth and underclassmen depth that's going to be able to step into those positions as we kind of roll into next year, right? So right now, 6'2", 215 sophomore at will linebacker, and then Andrew Harris, 6'2", 223. They'll put a little bit more weight on there as well. Ethan Barr, guys know that name. That guy is the commander of the defense, and he is a unit. Like
He's the real deal.
Yeah, I saw his interview today because they were doing the game week interviews, and you see him without his pads and stuff on. He actually looks like less massive when he's in his pads than he does outside of his pads. And his arms, not to go all war chant approved on here, but he's got massive arms. He's just like, his body is like, he's a real deal linebacker. He's the guy that you want calling the defense. And on top of that, thanks, Josh. And on top of that, not only that, but he knows the defense, and he's taken complete command of that defense as both a captain, but everything we've been hearing from his peers is that he looks the part, he's earned the part, and he's commanding the defense in the way that he should be. And you need that as a Mike linebacker, especially one that is going to have that earpiece in his ear while he's out on the field. So communication has been the big theme for what they've been talking.
Wait, they have headphones in now?
Yeah, it's a new thing for this year, right? Tablets as well on the sidelines is a different thing.
Yeah. They are supposed to have them for 15 seconds. Both the quarterback gets one, and then the Mike linebacker gets one.
It cuts off after that. Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to, but from what I've heard, is the college ones haven't.
They're not
so it'll be interesting to see who plays by the ball, plays by the rules, because the NFL's has been, but the college has not. So it'll be really interesting to see the Nick Sabans of the world kind of, college athletics programs and the former Jim Harbaughs of the world.
I was going to say with Ethan Barr, I when I was at spring practice, like the third practice, people were already hyping him up back then, like a couple practices in. So that evolution of like, we think he's going to be good to, I think it could be something special. We hope it's pretty cool of a change to have.
He knows how to scrape the line, which is the biggest thing that we were missing yesterday. Yeah, yesterday before the tackling. Yeah. So it feels like yesterday now that we're actually here. But he knows how to scrape. He knows his gaps. He knows where to be, when to be, and he can tell everybody else where to be, which is the most important part for a Mike linebacker. Ladarius Tennyson, he was making some noise. He's on the shorter side, but he's 200 pounds, so that's pretty strong. And Quadric Bullard has also been making some noise. He's a little taller, but he's still listed at 170, which is not heavy for a safety, especially in run stopping. The big thing that I've heard from Gus this offseason, and I've heard in the interviews, is obviously we've had a focus on stopping the run. And a lot of these guys that we have that are starting are all run stoppers. And then Brandon Adams is expecting nothing but a big year. And I expect that Chasen Johnson will take over for him as soon as he leaves because he's been making all kinds of fireworks. So does anything jump out to the rest of you? I mean, Trey, didn't you make it to a couple of practices this year?
No.
It was last year? Okay,
Last year.
it was last year. Last year he made it to a couple of Okay. Alan says he has one more. What do you have, Alan?
One thing that's
raise your hand to be called on at the class. Come on. There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing that stuck out to me more was just our depth at defensive end, just the weight of some of our defensive ends. We have our second string defensive end, 215 pounds. That is light for a defensive end. And it looks like that. Really, there's one there. Almost the entire depth chart on the defensive line is 250 or under, outside of basically Barber and Hunter. So that's fairly concerning to a degree. But
Isaiah Nixon, isn't he a freshman?
Redshirt freshman, but 215. That's pretty light to be your main backup. If Malachi Lawrence goes down and he gets promoted, that's a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
Some speed though that you could have going around that end.
Yeah.
If a guy's got a good, swim move or whatever, a light guy sometimes can do some damage.
Well, I'll just say Mitch McCarthy, our punter, weighs just as much as him.
Yeah.
But
McCarthy's a beast, though.
He's a big dude.
Yes.
Well, Mitch McCarthy as a punter, as Mr. Laudermilk proved to us, you don't have to be in the best shape to be a punter. So you could be smashing beers and kicking bombs at the same time with flowing locks. But yeah, no, it's, for me, it's exciting. I'm really excited to see what Deshaun Pace can do this year. I think he's going to be a difference maker for us on in the linebacking core as well.
I think in the secondary, it was already mentioned before, but I think I'm excited. I think to see what Chasen Johnson is going to bring to the secondary, just in whatever role or the amount of reps that he gets. I hope he gets a decent amount of reps in this game to see if his talent and his playmaking ability can really come through. I mean, we talked so much about our run defense last year, but I think what we've been missing over the last couple of years is just interceptions in general, just going after the football when it's in the air. And he appears to be, from a true freshman standpoint, just somebody who is an exciting playmaker and kind of a ball hawk on defense. And so I'm interested to see. I'm glad he made the 2 deep. And I think, and again, this was already mentioned by Roger, but I'll echo it, is that I was surprised, as somebody who knew a lot about him in high school, in Derek LeBlanc. I just because my nephew trained with him, and he was a teammate of John Walker's, and just a guy that was very highly recruited out of high school. I'm surprised that in 2 years he hasn't been able to crack the 2 deep yet. And maybe that's injury related. Obviously, we do, especially of the players that are a little bit down the depth chart. We don't ever hear about them suffering from any injuries, especially anything that's like kind of ticky tack and just kind of keeping them from being the best of their ability. And so it would be interesting to see if he does rise to the level of the 2 deep, or even get some playing time this year, because he was somebody that out of high school was very highly recruited. And to not see him on the defensive line is just interesting to me. Yep,
absolutely. All right. So I think that wraps up the defense. Do we want to talk a little bit about special teams? One thing that jumps out to me is that we have a certain someone that is the backup kick returner that really makes me question what were you thinking, or do we just have that poor of a special?
I mean, what's going on there?
I remember a certain situation back in the day that we were concerned about with a backup kick returner or punt returner, and it was really bad. I think it was who was it? Was it
JJ Wharton?
No,
JJ it was our wide receiver. It was
Jordan Akins. Remember that?
Jordan Akins, that's what it was. He got blown up on the first play of the
season or something like that, and that was it. He was done. He was done for the season because, and I remember looking at that and being like, oh my god, are they really doing that? No, don't put him out there. Don't put him out there. And he was done.
Yeah, so, Bam Moore was the other one too. Alan just mentioned this. Bam Moore was the other one that was on, but that one was even worse because we were blowing that team out when he was out there.
Akins was never got injured. He got drafted after the Peach Bowl in 2017 in the 4th round. So I don't think it ever happened to Akins.
Definitely Bam Moore should have been pulled.
Bam Moore happened in the 2019 season where Hypo kept him in too late at the end.
It happened to Akins. It was the 0-15 season when we were playing Furman, first kickoff.
Yeah, and it was the first kickoff, and he got out there, and I kept saying the entire time we were previewing that season, and I'm like, why is he out there? Why is he out there? Why do they have him return? And boom, it happened. And
now hold on, Andrew.
The people might be really just Traquan and him at the time. It was just those two guys.
Yeah. People might be confused.
I think we are talking about Bam Moore, actually, the first play of the season, but
yeah, Bam. Furman was the third game of the season.
Yeah.
Bam was the first game of the season. It wasn't special teams, so it was.
Yeah,
just,
it was Bam.
Well, it's happened twice, so we got a great history.
Yeah.
So in other words, who we're talking about is RJ Harvey. Please do not put that man out there on kick returns.
Which
Yeah.
is Johnny Richardson
get it,
was
man.
last year.
Yeah, I don't know why they're doing it.
Townsend
Not
at
against
punt
this team,
and-
anyways. I mean, you want to
Yeah,
do it maybe later in the season against a top opponent that if we're like, just trying to get some sort of spark, yeah, go for it. But I don't understand why a guy like Johnny Richardson isn't in that role. Somebody who to be shifty and quick and relatively sure-handed. He's got kick return experience. I think RJ Harvey has kick return experience from us as well. But still, by the same token, this is his year. This is his year.
The only thing I can think of, in the same way with Xavier Townsend, is both of those guys are older guy. Well, not even Xavier because he's just a junior, but like RJ Harvey, one of the things NFL people look for is guys that have special teams experience as well, right? Especially for those guys. But I don't think RJ Harvey is going to be marginal. Like RJ Harvey is gonna have a great season. I don't think he's going to be borderline. I obviously we know that running backs don't get drafted as highly as they used to, but I still think that he will be able to do this on his own merits. I mean, based on what we were talking about last season about that, I just couldn't see that happening. I don't understand why they have RJ Harvey out there. Xavier Townsend, I could see getting him more involved in the game, both as a reward, but at the same time, it's like I don't even want to see X out there, and I still think that puts him into the slot. So yeah, I mean, Andrew confused everybody by calling him by his real name, Akins. But everybody else knew him back then as Jalen Atkins, as opposed to his actual name. So
I forgot about that.
You remember that? Everybody
I forgot about that.
Everybody was butchering his name when he came back.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the special teams. The big question mark for me on this is, we know what we have in Mitch McCarthy. I think he's going to be fine. You'll get the 42 to 46 yard range. He averaged, I think, 41 or 42 last year. But remember, he's an Aussie style kicker, right? So he's not doing a traditional punt. He's going to be punting on the move. So he's not going to go as far. It'll be at an angle, etc. The big question for me is what's going to happen with Colton Boomer? Like, what are we expecting out of him? I mean, I know. We talked about it last season.
I told keep his head in the game.
Well, not just his head, but also the fact that he's he had dead leg at the end of last year. That was part of what was going on. Like I talked about it a little bit last year towards the end of the season. Gus talked about it, but that did get in his head after that. So who is Colton Boomer going to be this year? He's obviously not doing, I'm hoping he's not doing kickoffs and kicking as well like he did last year, because that does wear a kicker's leg out. If you're doing that, but I'm hoping we get year one Colton Boomer and half season Colton Boomer last year versus what we saw, because that put us in a lot of tough spots.
Well, I think the most interesting thing about Colton Boomer is how he's going to miss a kick, right? And I don't care if it's a 42-yard kick or whatever, or like a chip shot. Like, how is he going to react after that first miss? I hope he doesn't miss. Obviously,
he better not miss any chip shots after last year. That's all.
Well, yeah, but obviously, that's the thing. How is he going to react after that first miss is going to be the biggest question mark, I think, in special teams this season.
I mean, well, Andrew, we termed the Obarski thing back when Obarski was around. I don't want it to become boomered by the end of the season.
Yeah, man. I hope that he's such a kind of an exciting player, and the fans get into doing the boom thing and all that stuff. And I just felt so bad for him last year because, I mean, he may have had whatever you said, kicker. Dead leg or whatever, but it was his head more than anything, in my opinion. you could just see his body language out there when he would, go out to kick or miss a kick. I mean, the dude takes it very personally. I get it. And that's his one job is to kick field goals, I just want him to, hopefully he's, I don't know, been to a sports shrink or something like to just keep his head in it. That's a big deal for kickers. Like, it is a big deal. Like, you cannot get inside your head and expect to go out there and perform. It's like a golf swing.
That's exactly what I was
very similar. It's all muscle memory. It's one of those things. We know that he has a leg because he's kicked some long, field goals in the past. So I don't know, man.
I just hope our red zone offense
is decent better this year.
I hope our red zone offense is a little bit better this year, and we don't see him as often, especially for chip shots, Ben.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Trey, any thoughts on Boomer? You've been on the sidelines with kickers, as has Andrew. Andrew played for Kansas, for those of you that don't remember.
When Kansas was actually good at football. I have to remind people of that. There was a time.
Well, they were kind of
good now, though. Recently.
Playing at the same time, almost an hour difference on Thursday night. So I'm going to have 2 TVs going or split screen or something.
Split screen, man.
Yeah.
YouTube TV has a split screen. That's the way to go.
Yeah, they have the quad box too.
The ESPN app, man, has the split screen. Hopefully it works better this year.
Yeah.
They redid their app finally.
So what do you think, Trey? I mean, what do you think? I mean, we don't want it to get to the point where like Obarski, who was fighting people on the sideline. So, what do you think about that?
I mean, again, you want to try to go in with a clean slate, just forget about last year. There were highs, there were lows. But again, kicking is so different, especially field goals, because like you guys said, it's like a golf swing. It's one of those things where if you get in your head, you can kind of get the yips. I would say they get the yips with it. So, and Roger, you mentioned something about dead leg. I don't know anything about that, but again, it just looked like to me he was 1,000% in his head. So if he can go past that, he has plenty of talent. I mean, he has the leg talent to kick on Sundays. That's the type of kicker he is. But again, if he can't get out of his head, then not to say you're no use, but you really can't add any value to the team. If you can't make your kicks because you're just in your head, you're a kicker. It's not like you can go out and go on special teams and add value if you can't do something else. That's really all he can do. So we'll see. I'm interested to see who's, the guys behind him.
There's a lot of pressure when you're a kicker, number one, and you're the one guy out there that can score at that time, blah, blah, blah. You have to, do your golf swing with your foot. But the other thing, there's a lot of pressure for him with as much as the fans love him and do the boom thing.
Yep.
I mean, that puts extra pressure on, believe it or not, because everybody, is wanting to say that and boom, it's such a big deal. That actually adds a lot of pressure to what he does, in my opinion. So, I don't know. Yeah. So I hope he has a good year and he can do his job.
Do his job. Ben said do his job. Trey said do your job. Everybody's saying do your job. Yeah. We wish him nothing but luck. I mean, hopefully he cut some of his hair, so got the bad juju out of that hair from last season. We do have Grant Reddick to back up. I'm a lot more confident in his ability to kind of step in if we need to. He was a freshman last year. Now he's a redshirt freshman. Take this with a grain of salt because of the way that the camps are done, for kicking. But he was a quote unquote 5-star kicker. So hopefully he's put himself in position that if Boomer does have a problem, we can drop him in there and he can spell him for that as well. So
are there any weird rules this year for kickoffs like there is for the NFL? That thing is ridiculous. In college football? Did I miss anything on that?
It's a 2-minute. There's a 2-minute thing on the second and fourth quarters. There's a timeout of 2 minutes.
Yeah, there's a 2-minute rule now.
I don't think it's a kickoff change.
Man,
the kickoff did
NFL
not.
Kickoff. If y'all have seen that, that's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, if you watch JRP at all, he was returning some of those kickoffs and did fairly well, actually, for Pittsburgh when he was returning kickoffs. So
he got
for
like
him,
60 return yards the other day.
Yeah,
that's
60?
awesome. So you gonna make the team?
Oh wow!
I put out a couple of things today. I saw 2 predictions where they had him as basically the last guy that makes the final roster, and then mostly every single other outlet says he's going to make the practice squad at the very least.
That's good.
That's good
for him.
He played himself in a role. I mean, they had him at running back, wide receiver, kick returner, punt returner. He's done really, and I think he even threw a couple passes last game too.
Taysom Hill.
Find something and stick. That's it.
Or way back, what was number 10's name back in the day?
Cordell Stewart.
Yeah.
Flash.
Yeah, Slash, because he would do so many different things. That's cool, though. That's a great role for him, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey,
he's got to be a good guy in the locker room.
Oh, for sure.
1,000%.
Yeah,
1,000%.
He's hyping people up no matter what he's doing. He's such a. I talked a bunch of trash on him, but like
we all
just
did.
because,
not you, Andrew.
Oh yeah.
I don't ever remember having those conversations with you ever.
They're still all on YouTube.
Mikey
Y'all can find them.
Those were the days of Mikey Keene versus JRP.
Yeah. Well, I used to call him Plumber.
Yeah.
Like instead of Plumley, it's the plumber,
It's the plumber.
Oh boy. I was like that because that's what he's gonna be when he's out of college football. I remember saying that a couple of times.
Well, he showed you that so far he's not a plumber. We'll see what happens.
Such a good dude, though.
He's a really good dude.
That was the thing. I wasn't sure if that whole persona of being such like the nice guy and like rah was that, but I have never seen him in a video or in person or whatever not be that guy. Mm-hmm. So I've probably eaten my words on some stuff I said about him. Wasn't the greatest quarterback ever, but is a hell of a football player and a hell of a dude.
Yeah.
So
there you go. So one of the other things that I wanted to mention before we move on to that injury that we mentioned, the Big 12 this year features 8 1,000-yard rushers.
Wow.
8 in this league. So we've got 2 of them, right? And Miles Montgomery last year was an 800-yard rusher, so he was darn close, right? But 8. So all of those, we were talking about how the Big 12 has transitioned from the times of when Andrew played and throwing it all around the yard, right? This is this is more of an SEC style power football type of league. And we saw it with Kansas State last year. Kansas is running that smash mouth football. Obviously, UCF likes to go through the A gap as well. Wow. So just don't. But UCF likes to play power inside football. So Josh, don't. Just don't. I'll borrow something from Mr. Biden or President Biden. Just don't. So it's we play that smash mouth type football. You see Kansas State play it. Obviously, OSU has gone away from what they've been known for in the past, and it'll be really interesting to see how it shakes out in the Big 12. Now, surprisingly, RJ Harvey was left out of all of the All-American voting. So Taj made it from Texas Tech. Obviously, Ollie Gordon made it from OSU, but RJ Harvey was literally a few yards behind them and had more touchdowns. So I don't know how he's being left and being slept on, but this league, number one, their running backs are being slept on. But number two, RJ Harvey's got something to prove. And he just had a video that came out yesterday, I believe, that told his story. I'm telling you, I'm convinced this year RJ Harvey's going to go off.
Yeah. That was a great. If you haven't watched that Hometown Heroes video, I watched all 30 minutes of it. Actually, it was quite good. he's another person, and this is not Ward Train approved, but another person at that practice. I don't understand how that man is 215 pounds, but he is. Like, he's not the big
Zero body fat, dude.
He's not a Latavius Murray type of back, but man, is he's like Simone Biles. Like, she is just pure muscle, and like 4'8", he is just pure muscle and a little bit taller. So I agree. He should probably be on some level of All-American, either a preseason All-American or darn near close. But you know what? He's just going to prove it in the game.
I bet he loves that he's being underrated as well, though. Yeah. I bet you anything he's just the type of guy that will use that all year long. He's always said that. He said it last year because they were underrating him last year as well.
He's a quiet guy. He's a quiet guy, and he's a quiet leader, but he's also the guy that when he signed with No Bull was using part of his proceeds to buy shoes for the team. He's also the guy that's out there, going back to local high schools and is running camps for those kids. He's just a genuinely good person. And, and we've had those guys over the years. There's still, some parts of the UCF mom squad and I can't remember the center's name. What was his name?
Matt Lee.
Jordan Johnson.
Huh?
Jordan Johnson.
Jordan Johnson. And we had the guy that was doing with him was a tight end. He's a filmmaker now. And
Anthony Robertson.
Anthony Roberson. And we had his mom on. They still do that Christmas thing for kids that are local to the Orlando area, and they're not from here. So
those are good peeps right there.
Really good peeps. Guys. So, and that's one thing I want to have her on this year to kind of talk up her.
Speaking of another good peep, I've been trying to throw this in for a long time, and I know we were going to talk about some injuries later. Jordan Johnson. Jordan
Davis.
Jordan Johnson is not injured.
Yeah, Jordan Davis.
Breaking news.
Talking about Johnson. So, man, what a bummer for that guy. Every year I think he's probably a fifth-year guy. He's tried to play. This is Gabe Davis's little brother. I think maybe he had one or two snaps last year. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. Tore his Achilles like the second day after the last 2 years or 3 years trying to come back from a horrible knee injury, tore everything in there. But that dude is one of the most positive people that I've ever met. I've met him, been around if you follow his mom on social media, she's awesome. The whole family's awesome. Gabe Davis.
100%.
And I just feel so bad for him. Like I didn't know about that until today. His
I don't think anybody did.
Said anything about it. Gus was the one really to say something about it today. And just what a bummer for that guy. But he is stuck around the team the entire time. He's always been there. I'm so bummed for him.
Yeah,
but
it sucks.
Yeah,
it just does.
Well, I'm hoping he does the coaching thing because he's as he's been injured, he's done a lot of that a lot of other team members have done when they've been. Mackenzie Milton did the same thing when he was injured, where he was taking on that coaching role. So I'm hoping if that's his dream that he will stick around and continue to do that. I think to your point, some of
the worst luck.
3 ACLs. 3 ACLs in 3 seasons. I mean, that's just at some point you just have to hang up your cleats, and I think he's finally gotten that point. And if you think
we all
about
know that Achilles injury that he's got now is devastating.
Yeah.
Most people don't come back from that. That's a bad one, and it takes a long time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is it's not just like the actual injury itself, but he's gone through recovering from that, and that's not an easy process.
He's
It's
been
painful.
recovering the entire time he's been on the roster.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because he hurt his knee originally in high school and never, man, what a bummer.
Yeah, absolutely. So wish him well and nothing but the best. And I guess
that's for him, for real, if that's what you do, because he's the guy that needs it.
Absolutely. And speaking about other injuries, let's go ahead and pivot to the other one we were talking about, and John Walker. We started to talk about it last week, right as the news was hitting, because we actually recorded late last week. So we were able to pick up some of that from people that we know within the program, and then also hearing it in other places. But John Walker, he posted that picture of his knee in a brace, and it is a meniscus tear. The question is how bad? We don't know yet. We don't know how long he'll be gone. But Gus Malzahn did mention in his presser today that they are hoping to get him back during the season. So that means that the tear must not have been as bad. So because it can be anywhere from a 6-week recovery to like 12 weeks or longer. So, and Andrew, I mean, you know this stuff pretty well, given your history.
I got a meniscus tear right now that I've had since college. Believe it or not.
There you go.
Never had it repaired. Oh.
But you know how, but as far as timeframes are concerned, depending on how the tear is, I mean, there's a pretty wide range. You can go anywhere from 6 weeks to 12 to 16 weeks. So, we were wondering whether he would be back this season last week. It sounds like, based on what Gus said, is he's going to keep us updated, and that they expect to try to get him back in this season at some point. So it can't be as bad. Maybe they can just get away with scoping it.
I mean, for me personally, the way that Malzahn kind of said it, I don't know. I mean, I hope so, but he was like, Malzahn can kind of give some stuff away sometimes when he talks about like an injury. He didn't want to talk about it, but he was like, yeah, that's I mean, his body language sometimes can give stuff away, even though he does a lot of coach speak and is usually doesn't say a lot. But I just kind of felt when he mentioned that today in the press conference that it wasn't a good situation. So hopefully it can be. Meniscus can be weird. I don't know if any of y'all have ever had meniscus issues, but it can be really bad or it can be not that bad. Mine, I tore in college in 1996, and I've never had it fixed. It still hurts, but it's you can get away with it. I'm not playing football anymore, so it's just a little annoying pain every once in a while. But that's a big loss though, because that dude's a heck of a football player, and
this was supposed to be his breakout year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it probably would have been. I mean, he had some flashes of brilliance last year for sure. And
with him and Lee Hunter clogging up the middle, I mean, that would have been a heck of a duo. And more importantly, now that we've got some of our other D-line depth back this year, I think between the three of them, that would have been a pretty devastating run-stopping team and duo there. And Lee Hunter got in the backfield a lot last year. He led not only the league but the country in TFLs, and having someone like Walker on the other end to eat up blocks.
Walker's still young though, right?
He's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore. That's what
and if that meniscus is one, there's like two things it could be. It could be like an 8-ish week return, or it could be like 6 months. So there is the possibility, if it is the minor of the potential injuries, he might be able to come back in for the last couple games and still not go over 4 theoretically. But more than likely he's gone.
Meniscus isn't really like it's not a thing like an ACL or something where it reduces motion or puts like motion in the knee. You know what I'm saying? It's not a stability thing. It's more of a pain thing, and it's like it's kind of like a padding type thing. It's not a stability issue. So
well, over the course of the season, it can wear on you for sure and can make it worse as well. So I think it's smart for him to do it now. Well, obviously he doesn't have a choice in the timing, right? But
he's probably already had it scoped or whatever done, and they're waiting for him to recover from that. That's my speculation, but I would think with the way college football is these days and the medical staffs and the sponsorships from orthopedic institutes and all that stuff. I mean, I bet it's done already. But you never know. And then there's a lot of technology that wasn't around, a few years ago too. And these athletes are getting pretty advanced, training and techniques sometimes for fixing stuff.
Yep.
They're almost pro athletes. So,
we've got the Jewett team that's on the sidelines. So, he's at UCF, he's in good hands, right?
Absolutely.
And obviously we have
I don't know if they're using stem cells or anything like that, but that's pretty popular on knees these days. So
for old men, I think and women that's a you're in your 50s, 40s, 50s thing. I don't think a 20-year-old is getting stem cells, but maybe
some of the fighters, the UFC athletes, one of them, and I can't remember, he's not that old, but he got stem cells in his back or shoulder or something and just made a wild recovery.
Hey, LeBron James got him. I'm just putting it out there. So did Kobe Bryant.
I think a lot of athletes, like younger athletes, are starting to get them now. I mean, I could be wrong, but just
Ben, do you think you would the stem cells would help you out?
My issues were never my knees, but it was always a lower back, or I got scoliosis, and my feet and ankles were always my biggest issues as far as injuries or ticky-tack injuries goes. My ankles were terrible.
So we just need stem cells everywhere because you got your ankles broken too much. College. Is that what it is?
I need them, man.
Stem cells, whatever the heck that means.
All right. Let's move on to some happier thoughts and start talking about our predictions for the season. So, Alan, UCF does open as a 41.5 point favorite for our first game against New Hampshire. Why don't you talk us through the schedule? And as always, remember that to take the ESPN game predictor with a grain of salt. Because last season it lived up to its hype as usual for UCF as far as winning games as predicting games that we were going to win that didn't end up happening. So, Alan,
how do you want to do this? You want to go a game by game prediction, or you want me to just run through the entire schedule? Or
let's do a game by game prediction. We'll start with game one and then get everybody's thoughts. And let's go ahead and record it like we did last season, so that
I got it.
We've got a steak dinner.
Well, we did we recorded the scores.
We still have a steak dinner thing that never happened.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's why I brought it up.
I know that's why you brought it up, right?
It was who was it? Was it Trey or Ben? I don't remember.
It was Trey.
It wasn't me.
It was Trey.
It was because
I was in the middle last year.
We were going to do it at like Ruth Chris.
No. This is a couple
$1,000.
2 years ago, I swear I was just playing I was just like, I can't win, but I can't lose. That was my whole play the rest of the year.
Somebody still owes us a steak, though. I know that.
I have to go review the tape. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Instant replay.
All right, go ahead, Alan.
All right. So, last year we recorded our score predictions before each game. So I don't know if maybe we'll just do the New Hampshire one this time, we always reviewed it after the week. But all right. So obviously we start off this Thursday, our season opener against FCS New Hampshire, 7:00 on ESPN Plus. I guess I could start with my prediction. Obviously I'm thinking blowout like usual. Other than Furman, we've had our way with our FCS schools that we play every year, the bye games. So this is pretty much a tune-up game for us. So, I'll go 42-3.
Ooh, Alan says 42-3. And just to be clear, you mean that UCF's going to win, right?
I do mean UCF is going to win.
Okay,
yes.
just making
Just for
sure.
clarity purposes, let's make sure we know that. Yeah.
All right. Ben, why don't you go next? Because you always steal mine anyway.
And no, I do what I always do. I did back a Nightline, and Roger would always accuse me of stealing his, even though I would prove that I wrote it down prior. But I literally
flashbacks.
Alan can accuse me of the same thing because I literally wrote down 43-3 right before he said 42-3.
Oh.
There we go. That's my
43-3. You said
43-3.
43-3, and I can put it there if it would not block it out.
There's too much America in that background.
You gotta take a picture of it and send it in the group chat.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now, just so we're not.
It's going into the text chat. All right, Trey Neal, what do you got on the New Hampshire game?
Yeah, I think it's a blowout too. I think this is a tune-up, warm-up for these guys. Hope to see a lot of fireworks. So I'm gonna say 56-10. I feel these past few years I've been airing a little too low, but I mean, for what I remember, we've been coming out with fireworks against these early games. So I think we're gonna come out and hopefully make a statement in the sense that these guys are for real and trying to play clean football, but explosive football. So I'll say 56-10.
All right, Josh Lazar, what do you got this week?
That sounds like I need to write them down too. I believe that this is going to be a blowout. We're going to be at the second strings by the mid-third quarter. Hopefully we see Jakuri at QB maybe. I think we're going to go deep into the depth chart. I was thinking about 52-10. That's what I was thinking, 52-10. So not Bob, the Price is Right, Trey here, but that's where I was at. Now I guess I need to write it down with a date and timestamp.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, what do you think?
Oh, I wasn't prepared because I'm not going to do this all season with you guys, but I guess we can do it in the chat or whatever.
You're the guest picker.
There you go.
Celebrity picker.
Permanent guest picker.
There you go. Permanent guest
picker. He's the PGP.
I want to see 70 points. I always want to see 70 points against one of these FCS opponents. I don't know if Gus would do that. I don't know if he's done that yet in his history. I think the last time we did something like that was Scott Frost probably, or Heupel.
No, we did it against Temple.
It's on your cup, and
yeah, that's true. That is true. I got water in here, so you can't see it. But yeah, so was that the last time? That wasn't the last time we scored.
I'm checking
points.
I think Alan's right. We did it against Temple.
We did against Temple. JRP had a record for most touchdowns.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. So 70. I want to see 70 points. 70-14.
Well, doesn't Temple count as FCS at this point? I mean, we throw little jabs here and there. All right, so for me, I'm going to go 63-10. So not quite 70, not 56. I'm going to go right smack dab in the middle. I'm going to say 63-10. I hope I'm jumping. I'm going to be at the game this week, so I'm hoping I'm jumping around and in good spirits way too many times, and yelling UCF Knights. So on kickoff. So I'm super excited. 63-10 for me. All right. Alan, why don't you take us a spin through the rest of the schedule and let us know what you think? And why don't we say, who are the top 3 most difficult games that we face this season from everybody?
Yeah, so, after the opener, we get a little bit, I guess a mini bye week, half bye week, as we don't have to play again to the following Saturday, where we have what you would consider another tune-up game, which is against Sam Houston State, they'll be in their first year as an FBS program after getting the call up. They're in Conference USA, so essentially back-to-back FCS matchups. But life comes at us quick. Our conference opener is against TCU on the road the following weekend. So not an easy first real game. Not only is it on the road, but I know TCU was only a 5 or 6 win ball club last year, but this is a team as in the national championship 2 years ago. So I'm not going to take that game lightly. I think they're going to be vastly improved. Their recruiting has gotten better. They had some really good transfers in the offseason. And on the road, that's not an easy first matchup. Then we have one of 2 bye weeks real early in the season. So week 4 ends up being a bye week for us, where we're going to have 2 weeks off before we welcome Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes into town. Got Colorado there for our second conference game, and week 5 there. After that game is the big one that we all have circled, which is the Florida game, October 5th. In the Swamp. This is going to be, I think, arguably one of the most hyped, or if not the most hyped regular season game in UCF history, just with the budding kind of rivalry we've had with Florida, the fact that we've played them somewhat recently in the bowl game. We've beaten them in every sport recently, basketball, football, baseball, a lot of trash talk going back and forth. And, Florida's coming off a bad year, and they actually have by multiple metrics, the toughest schedule in the country. And I think we contribute to that for sure. That will basically finish out our non-conference slate once we, play Florida. Then we head right back into conference play a week later against Cincinnati at home. Should be one of our easier games. They're widely projected to be the worst or bottom 2, bottom 3 team in the conference. Then from there, we have, I think, one of our sneaky toughest games, which is Iowa State on the road, which is essentially like week 7 there. That's going to be a tough game. They had 9 wins last year, a team that I think will be in the mix for the conference championship. After that, we head back home and we have BYU, which, again, they're projected to be one of the bottom 3 teams. So, somewhat easy home game against BYU. Then we go home. We have another home matchup against Arizona. If you recall, they were ranked 21 in the preseason poll. So we'll see if they're still ranked at that point, but have a fairly tough home game there against Arizona. And, they have one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, if not the country. Then we go play their in-state brethren the week after on the road, Arizona State. Head out to Tempe. It's obviously going to be one of our longest road trips of the year. Fortunately, we have a bye week. I think it's a perfect time for a bye week right after that, going all the way across the country to Arizona. We have a week off, and then we go right over to West Virginia on the road, which I think is actually our toughest game of the season. It's going to be there the second to last week of the season on the road. And then we finish up on Black Friday, but it is not going to be against USF. It is going to be against number 12 Utah for the season finale, which at that point we're going to be either out of it or maybe even possibly playing our way into the conference championship in a very, very tough closeout game against, what right now is a top 15 team, but maybe at that point could be a top 10 team in the country.
Yeah. So interesting season this season. So you already kind of tipped your cap as far as who you thought the hardest game would be. What are the 2 other most difficult games in your estimation?
Yeah, I think by far West Virginia. I just think the fact that it's on the road, I think that's our toughest game of the season, followed by, obviously I would say Utah. I do think Iowa State's sneaky tough. And, I honestly, I don't think there's any gimme games, obviously, outside of the obvious, the first 2 weeks of the season. I wouldn't consider any game on our schedule a guarantee like we used to pencil in, Temple or Tulane or whomever it was back in the American. I wouldn't take any of these games.
Tulane wasn't a penciled game by the time we were leaving it.
By the time we were leaving, you're correct. They weren't. In the beginning, they were the ECUs, whomever, Memphis, before they got good, whatever the games we used to always pencil in. But, so I would consider the 4 toughest to be West Virginia.
Hold on,
Utah.
we said 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then I would say West Virginia, Utah, and Florida. I don't care how bad Florida is. A game in the swamp with SEC talent. I don't think that's an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. And so I would say that's our 3 toughest, in my opinion.
All right, Josh, what do you think? I'm not making you go last this time.
Yeah, I'll be quick about it too. I think that Utah is going to be one of our tougher games because I think there's going to be, not only are they a really, really good team, and I think their ranking is going to be within the top, 25 at that point.
Sorry.
I love that you brought back the boo.
I saw that at the bottom and I thought it was muted. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, that's awesome.
I heard somebody needed a
was.
moo, so here we go. That's back from the Nightline days.
At some point,
that's for Kevin Reese.
I apologize.
It's okay. At some point, I really want to get a board to try to put some sound effects into this. I'm with you. But, okay, so Utah, really do think they're going to be a really good team at the end of the year, and that could be for a game to play the next week on the 7th in the Big 12 championship in AT&T Stadium. So I really do think that that's going to be a really, really hard game. A sneaky hard game. I actually think a sneaky hard game, even though we win them all, is going to be that Arizona game. It's a space game. We should do well. Arizona's, flying out over here. I actually think that's going to be a really good game. I'm really hoping we pull another Oklahoma State and just blow it out of the water. But I actually feel like that's, even with their retooling and coach changes and everything else, I feel like that's going to be a tough game. And I agree, UF is, it's still UF. This isn't us going up against, Tim Tebow and Chris Leak, right? Back in 2005 or whatever. It's not that team anymore. I'd love to be the team that causes them to fire their coach, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But it's still
if they lose to us, they 100% will fire him.
I feel
it depends on where they're at, though. If they start off hot, that's different.
I don't know if they're going to get some 2-bits, Mr. 2-bits or whatever they do now. And I was at that 2005 game. That was.
I think awful. Mr. 2-bits actually passed away, unfortunately.
I know, but I think they keep on it's going to be. They're going to be loud. They're going to be annoying. They might not be as bad as they were 2 decades ago, but that's going to be a tough game. And I hope most of us are there. It's going to be good.
All right, Ben Stout. 3 toughest games. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with Alan on the West Virginia game. I'm planning on being at that game in West Virginia. My brother-in-law went to West Virginia, and so we're whole that side of the family we're going up there for that game, hopefully to watch a UCF win, but that is going to be an extremely tough game, I believe. Everybody's going to say UF. I think that's going to be a difficult game as well, but I'm going to hold that out of my top 3. I think the other 2 that I wrote down are Iowa State. At Iowa State, I think is going to be a difficult game for us. If we are able to take on, be undefeated at that point, I see that as a major trap game on the road, a really tough one. And then I have Utah as my 3rd most difficult game. That one's just weird for me because, I agree they could be a top 10 team, but will we have a lot more to play for than they do at that point? Are they already locked up the Big 12, the spot in the Big 12 championship game at that point? It'll be interesting to see where Utah's at and where we're at by the end of the season. But just roster for roster, kind of matchup wise, I just see that as as I just put those 3 in my top 3. So West Virginia, at Iowa State, and then Utah at home to finish out the season.
All right, Trey Neal.
Yeah, I think I agree with Josh. I think it's going to be Arizona. I think they're sneaky talented. They have a lot of. I know their quarterback is very good, and they have a receiver he's probably a first-round receiver. So I think those guys could present a threat. They're ranked early, so it's not just those 2. They clearly have more talent on the roster. I do think Utah's going to be tough. They're always tough. They're tough, just a tough football team to play. The benefit of those 2 games, though, we're playing it at home. So I think if we can kind of get the crowd on our side, get it jumping like we do, I think that can help us in that advantage. And then obviously the third one I think is going to be Florida. Not because the players, yes, they are SEC guys. They're talented guys in their own right. But I just think the Swamp is just a different monster. And I do think it depends on where they're at in the season. If they're 0-3, 1-2, 1-3 going in that game, I don't know if the Swamp's going to be kind of jumping, going crazy like we, like it has been. If they're coming in 3-0, 4-0, I think it could be it's a tough place to play. And I never played there, but I've been there for games. It is tough. It can be deafening. It can feel, it can feel swarming on you. Because those guys, it's just crazy. But again, I think, in my opinion, that's the biggest game in the history of UCF. I've said that plenty of times, just because of what I think it means for us. I think if we can beat them in a regular season game, there's always excuses whenever we play these SEC teams because it's a bowl game, nobody cares, blah, blah, blah. Well, week 4, week 5, this matters. And even if you guys are 1-2, you don't coach and you lose. I think if they're 1-2, 1-3, and they lose to UCF, they're fired that night. Later that night. So I think it's a huge game for us just to stamp ourselves as we're ready to compete at this level year in and year out. And obviously in-state stuff. We've been taking their recruits for now, but I think that just changes the way you look at us as a program. You don't look at us as that, they can be a great, program that beats these teams. No, we can do this consistently year in and year out. So to me, that's the biggest game in the history, in my opinion, but I'm just one guy.
All right. Andrew.
I agree with Trey as far as the Florida thing being a big deal. I mean, it's trajectory. It's a huge deal of going forward and all that. You beat Florida, and in Florida where we live, it's a big deal.
And mind you, I don't think
we're that'll be 2 in a row if we beat them.
And I don't think we're playing the second game at UCF. I think they're going to find a way to buy out of the game, and that's just. I knew that was going to happen, and again, I'm fine with it.
They'll want to, move it to Jacksonville or Orlando or whatever. But I'm just I'm in a little bit of Big 12 shock still. I'm just looking at this schedule, the whole thing, and I'm happy to see, as a longtime UCF fan, not as long as some, but longer than others. I'm happy to see a schedule like this with these names of teams that have had football programs for a long time. You know what I'm saying? I'm not so excited about Colorado. I do want to shut Dion up, just personally. I want him mad on the sideline after that game, or crying or something. But really, after Cincinnati on the schedule, just looking at Iowa State, BYU, Arizona State, West Virginia, and Utah, just that part of the schedule alone is like music to a football fan's ears right there. Especially, a UCF fan that's been wanting a schedule that looks like this for a long time. I have my eye, and I have the entire time since it was announced, on that Utah game on Black Friday. That could be absolutely massive. I hope it is. If not, I mean, it'll still be fun. But that one is big, and Iowa State at home. Somebody else mentioned that. That's a big one as well. That's an interesting place if you've never been there or seen it. If they're doing good at that time, that place is going to be crazy. It's a big place.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And rabid fans, because there's not a lot to root for out there. Iowa State, just like Nebraska with Trey. He knows. He knows that Midwest football fan.
Their weekends entail of getting ready for the game on Friday, and then going to the game on Friday. And Sunday, they're waiting to see who we play next week. That's all they care about.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are the Florida, Iowa State, and Utah are the big ones for me. Who knows? I mean, if we can make it through the TCU Colorado thing, I think that's going to be TCU, Colorado, Florida.
It's good
That
measurement
will
stick.
tell what our season's going to look like in those 3 weeks, right
I
there.
agree.
I think.
Well, I think Colorado definitely. I think they're a paper tiger still. They transferred. They turned over more on their roster than we did on ours. I'm not a believer in Dion as a head coach. I'm sorry, just
Not a fan. I'm a fan of him as a player, but not as a coach.
He was a beast as a player.
Oh yeah, man, great player.
Yep. So
No.
for me, Colorado is what it is. I do believe that and I'll agree with you guys on the UF being a potential trajectory builder for us, not just for this season, but long term. Now that we are in the P4, so to speak, I think FSU is going to, after watching them, they're going to have a down year as well. So if we are able to beat UF, Miami never knows what it's doing. They should be better than what they always are. So, unless Miami runs through the ACC this year, which I don't think they're going to do, I think this would be before there was always this, that we claimed the best team in Florida and all that other stuff a few times, right? But we never played a Power 5 schedule or Power 4 now schedule. Now that we're quote unquote legitimate and we have the opportunity to beat UF in the swamp and FSU's potentially having another down year, I think this is really an opportunity for us to put some shine on that gold on the UCF stacked logo. So I 100% agree with that. As far as the most difficult games this year, I picked West Virginia as well. They are a tough place to play, number one, and number two, they were a lot better team last year than I expected, and they're bringing most of those guys back. So I think I'm rooting for Ben to go couch burning in West Virginia on our behalf. But I think that's going to be a tough game. They're riding, I think, like a 8-game win streak, if I'm not mistaken, going into this season. So they're hot. They've got the same team going. They've obviously got something cooking over there. Neil Brown went from on being on the hot seat and getting ready to be fired to being the savior again. Now, if Neil Brown takes a nosedive again at the beginning of the season, I could see them getting rid of him. But I do think that team's going to be tough. I think Billy Napier, by the time we get to game 4, he's just not I don't think he's got control of the team. I don't think the team will follow him. I think that team falls apart. They have a lot of transfers as well this year. Their defense was suspect last year. It'll be interesting to see what their defense looks like now. Offensively, they're still anemic, so they can't lean on their defense like they have traditionally. We'll see by the time we get to the game with Florida, but I don't think that's going to be our most difficult game or the most difficult team that we play. I agree with Iowa State. If you don't know this about Iowa State has a really, really, really good home record. They're one of the toughest places, one of the top records in college football as far as their home win percentage. So they may suck everywhere else. They may have a 6-6 season or a 7-6 season, but at home they're tough to beat. So that's going to be a really, really tough place to play. And then Utah again, assuming Cam Rising doesn't get into a wheelchair again by the end of the season and hop in his hover round, I think that Utah is going to be a really, really, really tough team to play. They have their defense. Their defense is always stout. It reminds me a lot of George O'Leary football, lines and defense. So they know how to win. But at the end of the day, I think that those 3 teams, because of where they are and who they are, will be a tough environment to play. Now, if UCF is not in contention for the Big 12 championship this year, I think the Utah game actually swings in our favor even more so if the pressure is taken off for the Friday night game. So it'll be interesting to see where we are. A lot of Utah fans and other folks were saying, hey, look out for this game to have championship implications. If it does, the house is going to be rocking. If it doesn't, it takes the pressure off the team and we can still play spoiler, kind of like we did for Houston back in the days, the Casey Keenum days, if you guys remember those. So those are my three most difficult games of the season. All right. With that being said,
I think I just want to say I think what's fascinating about the Florida game, and we're going to talk a lot about it leading up to it, is that like if we lose that game, like our season is like by far not over.
No.
If we beat them in the Swamp, their season is over. Like they follow up our game with Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and then ends the season with Florida State. Like if they don't beat us on their home turf at night, then their season is over.
They might not win the game the rest of the season.
Yeah, and so like that's what's fascinating about the game. No matter what their record is going into that game, if we beat them in the Swamp, their season's over. And I just think it's so interesting that if the reverse happens, then our season's not over at all. It's just hey, it sucks that we missed that opportunity to become the state champions and all that stuff. Like it would suck. It'd be devastating for us just as fans. But our team, our season, our hopes are not over. Their season would be over if they lose to us.
I think Napier's career at Florida is over if that happens too, regardless of what I don't care what their record is going into that game. If they lose at home to us, he's done.
I don't think he's done. I don't necessarily think he's done that week, but he's done after the Tennessee game because he's going to lose a team and then he's going to get blown out at Tennessee, the next week, and it's just going to be over for them.
It depends too on how they come to the game. Remember, they play Miami this weekend, so if they beat Miami, they're going to be riding a high, and then if they do lose to us, and if they come to the game 4-0 and they lose us 4-1, there's no way he gets fired right after that game. But like you said, Ben, I think then you go into that murderer's row of schedule there.
Yeah,
they lose to us, all the wins going to be out of their sails, and they're going to probably end up maybe losing out or losing a bunch. I mean,
as of right now,
projecting 4 to 5 wins for them, anyways.
Right. As of right now, if they are 4-0 going into us, that's 2 top 20 wins based on the preseason poll. I mean, Miami's 19, Texas A&M is
but it's the preseason poll.
I get it, but if we were in the top 10, we'd be all talking about the preseason poll.
I get it.
That's 2 ranked teams.
The only thing I'll give Miami is they got Cam Ward coming back, and I expect him. He was running for his life, but he was throwing bombs all season because that's all they really had last year.
Yeah.
And I expect them to do the same thing, and Cam Ward to come back and absolutely annihilate Florida's defense on their first go around. So I
want Florida to come in undefeated just for our help.
I hope we're both going in undefeated. Imagine that, because that means game day is a potential if we're both coming in. The storylines would be crazy. I mean, that means at that point Florida had beat ranked Miami, ranked Texas A&M, coming undefeated, and then we're coming in. After a couple of these decent wins, TCU, we're going to have all the media fare of beating Colorado and Dion, and then we both come in on an in-state matchup that historically hasn't happened too many times. That would be really, really cool to see that. I'd rather beat them at their best.
I mean, honestly, that's reaching the level of what FSU UF was before they became what they became, right? As far as their rivalry was concerned, it's a good start to that kind of thing. So
we don't have any consistency in playing them, though. We won't play them again for another 7 years if we even play them
right now, right? But who knows how that changes? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the most difficult thing that's holding us back in playing Florida is there's still that perception of the Big Three, even though it doesn't exist anymore. And then secondly, the size of our stadium. We cannot give away enough visiting teams tickets to do that. So, as much as I was all about the home and home train when that all was going on, with Terry Mohajir, the reality of it is the gate that they're giving up to come here and play at our stadium. It doesn't make it worth it for them. It's almost like playing a buy game, and how much money that they'd lose on that. And that's the biggest thing holding us back, I think, with having home and homes with UF and or FSU.
Well, I also think logistically it's going to be very tough now, too, because the SEC's ballooned to 18 teams. How many out-of-conference games are they actually going to have? One is earmarked for Florida State. And then if they have one earmarked for an FCS program, for example, I mean,
We run out of
they may
games.
move to 10 in-conference games, and then we just wouldn't be able to play them because it wouldn't even
Well,
be
they're currently aren't they currently at 8?
8 what? No, they're at 9,
conference.
right? They're at 9 conference. So if they move to 10 in the future, then there's no chance that we ever play them again unless they drop their FCS game or drop Florida State, which I would assume wouldn't happen.
Yeah, Florida State is mandated to play Florida in the
yeah, so there could be a
there's
chance
something by
play them
the
again.
government of the state of Florida that mandates that to happen.
Yeah,
which
so they'd have to drop their FCS game, which I don't know if that's going to happen either.
That ain't never going to happen.
Well, either way. All right, enough Florida talk. We've got a whole pregame show to talk about Florida. And we'll probably have my resident co-host on 4th and Florida come in, who's a Gator, to come talk about that game as well. So for now, let's go ahead and pivot. There it is, finally, to Alan's Oxymoronic stat of the week.
Are we not going over keys to the game? I guess not. All right, that's cool.
Well, we can go to the keys of the game after that because I didn't see the keys of the game. Sorry.
All right. So my Oxymoronic stat of the week has to do with openers. So a couple little fun facts here. UCF has won their last 8 season openers in a row. So we are going for our 9th straight season opening win. Every single one of those season opener wins of the last 8 has come against a group of 5 or FCS outside of Georgia Tech in the COVID shortened 2020 year. Overall, since we've become a D1A program, which was in 1996, we are 18-10 in season openers. So we have a pretty good record. And as part of those 28 games, we've played 11 Power 5 or Power 4 openers, whatever you want to call it. With a 2-9 record against Power 5s in openers. We've only beaten NC State and Georgia Tech. But overall, we've won 16 of our last 18 openers. Our only losses were to FIU in the winless season, and then Penn State when we played them in Ireland. And then overall, 16 of our last 19 season openers have been either an FCS or a group of 5 school, which does not change this year when we play New Hampshire. And that is my Oxymoronic stat of the week.
All right. So a few of those stats of the week. Josh looked really angry during that, and that hypes up our stats versus facts rivalry that we have going on. And Alan unfortunately took the lead because Josh, you've been off touring the country with your business, so we missed you for a few weeks. So Alan is up 4-3 right now. He made up a little bit of ground on you. So Josh, what's your sometimes funny fact of the week this week?
You're on
muted.
You're muted,
Alan
bro.
stole one, so you didn't need to say that. I had it, man. Come on. Alan stole one, and I will. Okay, so I'll have to adjust a little. So UCF has never lost a home opener to an FCS team since they moved to FBS 1A, since Alan kind of told that. Who's the last team that UCF lost to in a home opener that's currently in the FBS? And the offensive coordinator of that team.
Name the offensive coordinator or name the team?
First name the team and then name the offensive coordinator of that team. We actually talked about this during the episode a little bit.
The last team they lost to, it's FBS now?
Correct.
FIU.
Season home opener.
FIU.
Well, it wasn't
Season home opener. Both wrong.
It's a home opener. Okay.
Was that Austin P?
No, we
That
don't.
was a home opener.
The only
Home
reason
opener.
I'm saying this is I'm trying to remember who we talked about in the
We
episode.
actually talked about the offense, actually. Amazingly
It has
enough.
to be at home, obviously.
Was home.
Georgia.
So our recent home, is it recent?
No.
I think it was. I feel like it was an SEC school or an ACC school.
Nope. This was an FBS school. It wasn't like Tulane. It
No,
was,
yeah, well,
It was
SEC,
FBS.
was it Sam Houston State?
Virginia Tech.
Georgia Southern.
getting closer.
They're FBS. You said
Correct.
They're FBS now.
Sorry.
though.
FCS.
Okay, they're
FCS.
Oh, they're FCS. Oh, that's a big difference. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that has to be pretty way back, right?
It is. But we got in the States, in Atlanta.
Kennesaw State.
Georgia State.
Georgia Southern.
I said Georgia State first.
Atlanta. Georgia Tech. That's not Georgia Tech.
Nope.
Georgia Tech's FBS, dude.
Georgia
They're not
State's
FBS.
Georgia
All right,
State.
give us a hint.
Okay. It's in the state of Atlanta. I don't know.
Yeah, Kennesaw without me.
No, it's not Kennesaw.
No.
Who else is in Atlanta?
I'd say a little further south. I
out.
want to triple check that. Now I have to go to a map. but
Emory? Emory? Do they have a football team?
Does Emory have a football team?
You're saying in the state of Georgia?
Yes.
I don't know any more schools that are in Georgia. Valdosta State.
Valdosta State.
Ding, 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 ding. Valdosta.
Well, why'd you
I
say
got
Atlanta
it
then?
first try.
That's
When
When did we talk about Valdosta in here?
No,
I don't remember
no.
that.
Hold on.
Valdosta is
Hold on.
close to Atlanta.
Hold on. First of all, Valdosta State, we lost in a home opener to Valdosta State in 1994. That's the last time we've lost a home opener to an FCS school of any type. Yeah, it's been a while. And the offensive coordinator of that team ran an air raid offense, and he was really famous for it.
Valdosta State.
Brent Key. I'm just kidding.
That's the anti-air raid offense.
Air raid.
Was it Gus Malzahn?
No.
No.
The hint is he recently passed away.
Oh, the Washington State coach. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Mike
Leach?
Mike Leach.
Mike Leach.
Mike Leach was the
National
offensive
treasure, Mike
coordinator of that 1994 Valdosta State team.
Oh, that's a fun fact.
That's a
And
true.
we got shellacked. It
the
was bad.
Pirate.
Yeah. It was
I love
how
that
it was
guy.
how
I think
I don't remember
everybody
how to
did. All of college football did. I mean, his when he started talking about like giving people advice on marriage and like
Oh man,
talking about
anything that dude
Bigfoot
said
and everything else, he was just
When you
that
talk about-
There
guy.
was always something.
Which mascot would win in a fight? Oh my
Yeah.
god, the best.
And the press people would come up with crazy questions like that because they knew that he would just go nuts and it would be like a viral moment or whatever, So, man, that guy was a college football icon. One of those people like gone way too soon.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
game is different without him in it.
For sure.
All right. So Alan, since you mentioned the keys to the game, let's go ahead and go back to that. For me, the keys to the game is we show up.
It's a little more than that, but
Listen, they lost their starting running back. They lost their quarterback. They lost their best receiver. So offense, I'm not expecting much. And with the defense that we have, I think it's just that the bus rolls into Orlando, is able to, it doesn't get in an accident, and they manage to get into the stadium.
I think
yeah, there you always have that Michigan debacle, right? But you're right. With the right mindset, and they are there. I think that's the key, having the right mindset to execute well. And I will say this, I think Gus has harped on penalties so many times in different interviews that I think he wants to see not only showing up, but he doesn't want to see 10 penalties in the game. Like, I think that's going to be one of the bigger, can we play well and play clean without any penalties or limited. I think those are the two things we're going to look for.
Gus was so mad after last season. There's no way on God's green earth that any of these teams are going to take us by surprise.
No, I don't think they're going to take us by surprise, but definitely I was going to say the two things for me in this game is number one was what Josh just said. I mean, can we play a clean game? Can we limit penalties? Because I think that's going to speak to some of the discipline that Gus has been harping on in the offseason. And then the other thing for me, and it was in a couple of our score predictions, like where we had, we might have had beat them by 50 points, but we had a 10 in there. We had a 14 in there. Like, I don't want our defense to give up a touchdown. That's my second biggest thing that I'm looking for in this game is I certainly don't want our defense to give up a touchdown. I think I don't care if we give up a garbage field goal here and there, but like, I don't want to see them running on us at all, and I don't want to give a touchdown, because in these games against these types of opponents, you just look for little clues of like, what type of team do we have at UCF, and if we can play a clean game and our defense looks much improved, not just on paper anymore, like on the field, because we got nowhere to go but up, in my opinion, on the defensive side of the ball. Those are the two things I'm looking for: discipline and defense just playing lights out.
All right. Anybody else want to give their keys to the game other than show up?
Yeah,
and maybe for Trey pregame, make sure you get that pregame ritual in. Otherwise, it might be a problem.
Do it, man.
That's what happened at Furman, right? That's what happened with Furman. Is that what happened? Did you skip the ritual?
I don't know what happened that whole season. I don't know what was going on.
We don't either, Trey. We don't either.
We were just as confused as you guys were. Trust me.
That was some bad juju going on out
I
there.
will never forget it. I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget it.
I remember Andrew talking about how hard it always was every week to say something.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible.
It was
There's
just
nothing positive to say.
It was just as hard going out there being like,
oh, I'm sure.
We were like, bro, what are we doing? Like, why are we?
Oh, let's please not talk about it. Let's just move on. Let's move on to this season.
All right. Okay. So we got our keys to the game in. I think I don't know if you want to run quickly, like really quickly, Alan, through the NFL updates, since there's been some roster cuts. And then we'll move into a little bit of listener love and close it out.
Yeah, sure. So there was some cuts, some were expected, but some positive stuff. Tremont Morris-Brash is looking like someone that was slept on, should have been drafted. He is pretty much secured a spot with the Chargers. If you didn't see it, he had a pick 6 in the last game. Really awesome play. Probably was like a 20-yard run there for the pick 6. So he looks to have secured a spot on the Chargers. We already mentioned JRP looking like he's going to either make it on the final roster of special teams or at the very least on the practice squad. As far as cuts, Jacob Harris was cut by the Jags, but looks to be a strong candidate for the practice squad. Tay Gowan was cut by the Titans. Cowboys unfortunately cut both Alec Holler and Jason Johnson, but it does look like Jason Johnson has played his way onto the practice squad. Kalia Davis, despite the injury, I think they're going to put him on the PUP list. And they see the potential there. They're going to want to keep him. Grable looks to have made a spot on the Bills despite being a 6th-round pick. Then I think we said Matty Ice obviously got cut, but he usually gets picked up every season at some point. Someone will pick him up. He's pretty reliable. But overall, as of now, before any special teams, I'm sorry, I keep saying special team, for any practice squads, we're down to 20, or I should say up to 20 guys in the NFL. So out of the guys in the offseason that, that graduated or left early, Javon Baker, Tylen Grable, Tremont Morris-Brash, and JRP look like the guys that are going to make it from last year's squad.
All right. Awesome. So congratulations to those guys who are going to make it, or, even if it's just practice squad, they're continuing their career. It's a lot further than I made it. Trey got some tryouts, but he didn't make it either.
Nope.
In his words, he was too slow. And then obviously, and for those of you that don't know, Andrew had some professional experience, but was not.
I was too slow too. I was way too slow.
He's the OG of the too slow defensive backs.
Yeah, I was way too slow. But it was fun though.
Well, with that, let's give a little listener love. I want to shout out real quick to ReachInX3954. Had a couple of comments on our YouTube channel. He says, "You guys are hilarious. This team is nowhere near good enough for Mikey to not get run. He'll start alongside Darius Johnson and Jalen Centers. Imagine finally getting top recruits and thinking that they won't play." So we went a little back and forth on this one, right? And so just to clarify and to put a dot on this point, what his take or her take was that basically our definition of getting run 7 to 8 minutes or so was not what he would call getting run.
We can throw there.
8 minutes is a lot, man. I
Right?
appreciate the comment, but 7 to 8 minutes is a lot. In the beginning of and remember the context, we said in the beginning of the season.
Oh yeah.
I have confidence that he can earn more if he plays up to his level of talent. But him getting more than 7 to 8 minutes, having not been with this team as long as some others, I'd be shocked. But that'd be awesome if he plays up to his potential.
All right.
Yeah,
So with that being said, I'm just going to allow Josh to do a quick update on sports that Alan doesn't watch. And the only reason I'm going to bring that up, because I know we're going right at 2 hours right now, is because Josh told us that UCF beat Florida in soccer 3-0. And that didn't turn out to be true. So
that's not us, by the way. There's a good Kendrick Lamar thing there. I'm just gonna stop right there. What happened was it was like late at night, and I searched online for the women's score, and Twitter, I'm not calling it X, Twitter had us winning 3-0, which is true. That was in 2022. So that was what really happened was UCF women's soccer. They had a couple of draws this week. They had a draw with Utah Valley on Thursday and with 1-1, and with UF on Sunday 2-2. It was not a 3-0 win, although I really would have liked that. And UF had to come back in that game twice. We led 1-0 and 2-1. So that was sad, but it is life. We still beat pants off of FIU and still moving forward. Haven't lost yet. UCF men's soccer, they beat Mercer 3-1 last Thursday and drew with a ranked Seattle 1-1 on Sunday. If you were watching that game, the keeper had both a moment and also a really good penalty save. It was interesting if you watched the penalty save, the keeper was really going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and then right at the center, right at the dead center of the kick, went to the right and just got a full hand on it. It was really good. So that's the other sports that Alan doesn't watch, and my bad late night web research.
All right, thank you very much. His bad late night web research. That's what it was. So I don't know what else he's searching for late night, but we'll leave it at that. All right. Research spelled like the cows.
Oh God, research.
Get one in there if you got it queued up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I wasn't listening.
Okay. I really.
I was thinking about something, and
we gotta get that sound effect back. That's just a classic.
You can buy it from me.
Yeah,
there we go.
I'll sell it to you.
Thank you, Andrew, for joining us, the OG of UCF podcasting. Thank you for joining us on the first episode, and now the first episode of season 2. We'll have him back as long as he can make it. He has an amazing tan, cannot do a hair flip, but has an amazing tan, and one of my favorite people. So thank you all for going along this ride with us for a year, and excited to get into the next one. Go Knights and...
Charge on.
Josh, really? You didn't have anything to say this time when we're at the end of it?
Charge on!